over the synthesis section guidelines. So, basically, you're going to be writing this on the topic that you proposed to me, and this is part of your research project. So everything we do in this class is going to be part of that project. So you want to write everything on the topic that you proposed to me. This particular section of your essay is going to be 500 words minimum. You'll need at least 2 sources. Just do your best on doing research and finding sources and doing citations. We'll go over that more in depth later on. But I felt like if I gave you all of that information, like all at once, along with all the other information that I've given you this week, it would have been a little overwhelming. And so, but it is important that you try to do your best so that I can gauge where you are in, finding sources and citing them. But I will say, use the SWIC library database. If you don't know how to do that, if you click on support services and click on library, and you scroll down, there's a search bar. You can use selected EBSCO or JSTOR. Either one is going to give you really good results. And EBSCO will even cite the text for you if you push cite over on the side. But, it might not be completely accurate, but it'll at least give you an idea of what you're trying to do. And you just type in your keywords and it'll give you a list of articles. You want to make sure that you hit there's going to be a bar over here, and there's a place where it says like PDF full text, and you want to hit that because otherwise you're going to get articles that you can't get access to. So that's the basics of how to find stuff with the SWIC library database, and I would recommend using that first instead of Google, because Google is not going to give you the sort of academic sources that you need for this paper. So you'll need 2 or more sources. You want to have it be in a sort of standard font, so like Times New Roman 12-point font. You want it to be double spaced. That makes it easier for me to read, and it's also goes along with MLA format. And when I say 1-inch margins, I basically just mean don't change the margins to try to make it look like you wrote more. MLA format, so basically the headers, your last name and page number at the top right, and then on the first page you want, your name, my name, the class name, and the due date of the assignment. You'll also need a works cited page. So at the end on its own separate page, you want a page that's titled works cited, and then you have your MLA citations. Again, just do your best with those so that I can see sort of if you can figure that out. And then I'll know how much I need to go in depth with that later. You will need a rough draft for this, and that will be due on Tuesday in class on the 24th. So make sure that you have it done by then. And it's important to note that because this is a section of your research paper, you don't need an introduction or a conclusion. If you need to sort of write yourself an introduction to get you going, you can. but you can just start on body paragraphs as if you're already in the argument, you've already introduced it, and you're just working on this section of the essay. So what you're going to do in the synthesis section is synthesis is a combination of ideas to form a coherent whole. So in the case of research essay writing, it means combining the ideas of your sources and yourself. So you'll synthesize the ideas of at least 2 of your sources with your own ideas. In other words, you're going to use 3 different perspectives to form one idea. Okay? So your whole synthesis section should focus on one idea and use your perspective and your sources' perspectives to create that one idea. Okay, so they should be working together, more cooperative than anything else. So you want to start your synthesis section by summarizing both sources in one paragraph. I want you to be brief, 1 to 2 sentences max for each source. And that's how you can get started. Just, in so-and-so's article, blah, 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 they say that this. And in so-and-so's article, blah, 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 they say this. Okay. And then you can kind of go into, the relationship between that and what you're talking about. So a few sort of ideas that are important to doing synthesis is, first you want to identify points of contact. So ways in which your ideas and the ideas of your sources intersect or connect. So before you start writing, find the ideas that are shared by your sources. So, one source is talking about, social media and its effect on mental health, and the other one's talking about the effects of social media on socialization. You want to find where do those 2 ideas connect. So, what are the ideas that are most closely associated with each other? You might want to do maybe some color coding or something. I don't know. Use what works best for you. But in your paper, you want to include both viewpoints on each idea. So each paragraph represents an idea within your paper. Within the main idea of the paragraph, you want to compare and contrast what your sources have to say about it. But also be sure to include your conclusions about what that means for your argument. Okay? So don't just say, this person says this and this person says this, and here's how it's similar and different. You have to then add, and here's how that relates to what I'm saying. So you want to have both sources represented in every paragraph. So that's a good way to avoid what I call the isolationist problem. So if you have only one source represented in a paragraph, then you're not synthesizing the ideas of that source with the ideas of your other source. So that's a problem, right? You are isolating that source from your other source, and how are you going to synthesize the ideas to form a coherent whole if you are only talking about one of them? So a good rule of thumb is to include at least 2 sources in each paragraph. If you want to use 3 sources, you can. That's entirely up to you. So, and finally, variation. You want to incorporate your sources in a variety of ways. There are 3 main ways to use sources. The first is summarizing. That's what you should do in your first paragraph. And then there's paraphrasing and quoting. And I need to see all 3 of these being used, okay? So when you paraphrase, you want to put their ideas in your own words, and you still want to have an in-text citation. So what an in-text citation looks like is just parentheses, author's last name, page number. That's all you need for in-text citations. Especially if you're using articles. If your source doesn't have a page number, just put the author's last name. Okay? So, and like I said, we'll go over how to do that more properly later on. So just do your best, okay? So, parentheses, author's last name, page number. No commas. And then with quoting, you want to put word for word what your source says and put quotation marks around it. All right? So I need to see all 3 of these being used. You'll use summary to introduce your sources. You'll use paraphrasing and quoting to go into the details of the ideas. Okay? But you can't just use all quotes or all paraphrasing. You need to use both, okay? So a good rule of thumb, paraphrase when the idea is long and complicated. Quote when the idea is short and simple. I've also included a sample synthesis paper. It is nonsense. I wrote this, these sources are not real. This argument is not real. None of the facts here are real. They are not real facts. And, it's just a fun little way for me to show you how to synthesize. So, It also, you can see when you look at it that each has an explanation of what this part is doing, and you want to have these sort of represented in your own paper, but not necessarily in the same order or in the same fashion or, whatever. This is not meant to be a template for your paper or a formula for your paper. It's just meant to show you the kinds of rhetorical moves that you can be making in your synthesis and what that should look like, okay? So yeah, and it's all about UFOs, which I watch a lot of UFO documentaries, and because they're hilarious. So no, I don't actually believe that aliens are visiting this Earth. Anyway, so yeah, this is just a fun example for you to see how this works. So let me know if you have any questions whatsoever. I am available by email, and I would be happy to answer any of your questions that you might have. So please ask them, okay? All right, I'll see you guys on Tuesday when we will go over the rough draft of the synthesis section. And that's all I have for you today. All right. Bye, guys.